Bootstrap uses a lot of JavaScript dependent components. And just like with regular components, there's not a lot of changes, especially in the JavaScript part. On occasion, you do see a few adjustments. It's really just to the HTML. Classes will sometimes change names. Elements might get a little bit more encapsulated, but overall, the coding stays pretty similar. So let's take a look at a couple of examples so you can see the way things have changed. One of the most common used features in Bootstrap is the modal, and that has changed just a little bit. So if you look at the code now and you look at the code from before, it's a little more wordy now. Before, you would just create a div with a class of modal, and inside that, you would create a div with a class of modal header, modal body, and modal footer. Now, if you look at the code now, you can see that it's grown a little bit. You still have the div with the class of modal, and you still have the header, the body, and the footer. But they've added a couple of new wrappers, one called modal content and another one called modal dialog. Another place where I noticed big changes is the buttons checkbox and the buttons radio section. So if we go to this button part right here, scroll down to the checkbox and radio section, you'll notice some big changes. So if you look at the code for the previous version of Bootstrap, you'll notice that for these, Bootstrap was using the button tag. In the new version, they're treated more like forms and they use the input fields type checkbox and radio. Now, one JavaScript element that changes a lot in the new version is the carousel, which is also one of the most popular features of Bootstrap. Now, it doesn't change programmatically or even in the HTML implementation. The look and feel has certainly been updated. In the old version of Bootstrap, the indicators were to the top right of the carousel, and the buttons were made from PNGs. In the new version of Bootstrap, the buttons are using icon fonts, and the indicators are down into the center of the carousel. There's also a slight shadow behind the arrows. There's also an additional class you can use to create items within the carousel. These are now under this optional caption section, and you can use the carousel caption element with any item. Carousels are also hidden by default and will only show up on viewports that are 768 pixels wide or bigger. Luckily, not a lot of stuff is going to break when you import your old site to the new Bootstrap when it comes to JavaScript, but you should watch out for a couple of changes to the way things are coded. I really like the new carousels, and I'm glad they've implemented glyph icon fonts everywhere.